Good afternoon, everybody. It's April 14, 2025. Hope everybody's doing well on this Monday. I guess I have a couple of things to review with you guys. I want to tell you the latest criminal activity on my property. You know, it's really warm today and was a little bit warmer yesterday, so I opened the windows in the cat's building. Cat's windows have screens that are really kind of difficult to open, especially from the inside. Some people can open them from the outside, and that's what the criminals have been doing. They thought it was funny yesterday to lift up the screen and allow some of my cats to run out of the building. And unfortunately, one is still running around the property, and it's very difficult to get back. So, this is what the little criminals around here, they like to perform these pranks to upset the apple cart. I want to mention that, the weather is beautiful. It's warm. It's going to be up in the 80s today. And there is something that I started to talk about, the persistent predatory personality, a couple of days ago. And it's the first time I'd actually heard of that terminology. And it was actually coined by a Dr. Karen Mitchell, the persistent predatory personality. She goes on to say that psychopaths, Machiavellians, and narcissists, collectively, they are the dark triad, or people of the dark personality. They actively violate social norms and harm and disadvantage others by conscious choice. That's the key. They are consciously aware of what they're doing. While people of the dark personality may have positive characteristics, their own needs and goals are always foremost. Research shows they universally compromise and disadvantage organizations, communities, and or individuals, meaning that they're very toxic to those communities. Their characteristics include manipulation, intimidation, a drive for control or dominance, lying, bullying, self-preservation at the cost of all else, and an enjoyment in seeing others harmed or devalued, yet they often appear to be so compelling and normal, and their actions may lack transparency. Even those who believe that they're great with people are often fooled by their facades. And we hear about this all the time in the news when we see these husbands and wives and one of them takes out the other spouse. And they always put on this great front, this great act, and behind the scenes they're taking out insurance policies on their exes and stuff. I just watched a video like that yesterday. So yeah, they put up a very good front, and a good movie to describe this is Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia Roberts. She was married to a wealthy narcissist, and he harassed her, intimidated her, abused her, etc., etc. No, she wasn't on a watch list. She was just in a very abusive relationship with a wealthy man. So Dr. Karen Mitchell works at she has her Kalmore, K-A-L-M-O-R Institute. She's the CEO. She's the first person in the world to collect data from international expert practitioners working with people of the dark personality or their targets and victims outside of prison. She's the first person to collect data from experts in many fields, including corporates, medicine, child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church, coercive domestic violence, and cults, and so on. She is the first in the world to collect data from experts working in both forensic and non-forensic contexts. The data indicates higher functioning psychopaths and narcissists are as dangerous and malevolently intentioned and share the same attributes of those in prison for serious overt crimes. They can create highly convincing persona of a good-natured, kind, even heroic figure. However, they use intimidation against those who try to expose them. Karen has indicated a nuanced, comprehensive set of attributes common to all people of the dark personality, as well as a metaphorical weaponry or set of tactics that they commonly engage. She has also established how the attributes of high-functioning psychopaths and narcissists manifest behaviorally in different contexts. And some of the problems in the family court, her research shows, and I experienced this when I was going through my divorce, these judges and attorneys are not educated in personality defects. They're not educated in these narcissistic, psychopathic, and sociopathic behaviors, and how charming and how convincing they can be, to the point of getting custody rights of their children from the parent who cared about them most. So in family court, decisions are made by professionals who do not see through people of the dark personality, and it results in following impact on children and adolescents: prolonged abuse, child suicide, suicidal ideation, severe forms of mental illness, post-traumatic stress disorder, self-harming behaviors, addiction, social anxiety, decline in social performance, difficulty in social relationships, eating disorders, and lifelong mental health issues. And unfortunately, this is commonplace. Millions of people who are psychopaths, narcissists, and coercive controllers weaponize the justice system to further control and harm their ex-partner and children. Their key driver is control and dominance. Long-term family court proceedings, and those which go to trial, almost always involve a protective parent, quote unquote, and a narcissist, psychopath, coercive controller. These cases are incorrectly described as high conflict cases. They are not. So this Doctors Institute offers help for lawyers and people who work in the justice system. They focus on bullying, toxic, predatory, and coercively controlling behaviors in the justice system. Now she goes on to explain why people are targeted by dark personalities, and often they're targeted by more than one. This is the key. For those of us who realize that there are multiple groups of people harassing us, okay? Tragically, people targeted by dark personalities and predators are often targeted by more than one. This may have the effect of making the target see somehow at fault or weird, because who has several dark personalities after them? Oh, there are so many out there. We're living in a society of narcissists. We are creating them. But that would be a video for another day, because I have had my theories for, I guess, 15, 20 years about how we're creating narcissists and psychopaths in our society. Because we have the highest percentage in the entire world. The entire world, okay? They also must have a vulnerability of some type, such as a recent death of a loved one or an abusive upbringing. Predators also enjoy taking on those that try to expose them, who are usually people committed to fairness, and they often target people who have resources that can be exploited. So if you're well-intentioned, kind, truthful, hardworking, have a fairness of value, have resources, and have some vulnerability, read up on the red flags for dark personalities, because it is urgent that you protect yourself. So how do you avoid being targeted? Well, it's a little late. I mean, it's been going on a dozen years plus for me. And I'm going to get onto that because, as somebody mentioned in a comment section, very astute, that said, they believe that someone in my past was still or was in love with me. And this is about retaliation and getting even. And I've got someone that I'm going to call out when I was 16 years old. Yeah, going back that far. But it's certainly a possibility. I'll tell you why. But, okay, so here we go. It's a tough question. Predators do target very specific types. If you're kind, well-meaning, honest, and have some kind of vulnerability, you're more likely to be targeted. However, there are protective recommendations that include, if you have a low self-sense of worth, invest in supporting with increasing it. Predators smell it. Do not overshare about yourself. This is recognized by predators as a sign of niceness, which means greater susceptibility to manipulation and control. Practice saying no. Predators test in the early days to see if boundaries can be pushed. If you are practiced at declining as well as accepting proposals, suggestions, ideas, offers, requests for help, you are not such an obvious target. Know the red flags, know the attributes, know the tactics. There are many, many subtle signs that a predator gives away. They're also in her PhD. She wrote about, and she's a book will come out soon. Make sure that you're conversant with them. When you see a few of these signs, start researching. Do research. It's so important that if you have concerns about someone, ask around about them. Search the internet. Research their business, who they're connected with. Eventually, the data paints a picture. Just as the video that I saw the other day about this husband took out his gorgeous wife. He had taken out a very large insurance policy on her months before. He fired one of his good workers and then manipulated him, the worker, to conspire against unaliving his wife. They both got convicted to life in prison, but this narcissist husband thought he would never get caught. And everybody thought he was so wonderful, so this, so that. Nobody suspected him. I knew from the first 5 minutes that it was him. It was so obvious to me. Do your research. It's important. If you have concern about somebody, ask around. Check out their posture, their walking gait. Be confident. One study showed that predators could identify an easy target from gait. Do not openly discuss that you're estranged from or geographically distant from or have no family. Predators target those who are isolated or who can be isolated. So what's the difference between sociopaths and psychopaths? So Karen says in her research indicates that sociopaths can be differentiated from psychopaths. When it comes to understanding these dark personalities, they fall into 4 groups. 4 kinds of psychologists and psychiatrists. Remember, psychiatrists and psychologists may also be narcissists and psychopaths, and it's very common in the surgical field for surgical professionals, medical doctors, to be very, very high on the list of narcissism. And if you listen to the 4-part testimony of Karen Romero, also known as Goodness 8. She was a nurse, and she documented the behaviors of these extremely immature and narcissistic doctors and surgeons at the facilities that she was employed. The mental health professional is themselves a predator, a dark personality. Predators gravitate to vulnerable populations and those seeking support from mental health issues that are vulnerable. The mental health professional believes they're experienced in all things, quote unquote, mental health. I hate that. I hate that terminology, mental health. These are not mental health. These are personality disorders, okay? It has nothing to do with mental health. It's personality disorders. So let's scrap that. That's just my opinion. Based upon my 8-9 years of psychology of education. So they are indeed seasoned professionals, but they don't get the predators and the complex fabric of darkness that they engage in. These mental health professionals, like the one that I mentioned in Manalapan, New Jersey, and Freehold, New Jersey, whose name I won't mention right now. The last name begins with the letter B for Booth. These mental health professionals, well, she's actually not a mental health professional. She was a brand new assessor with no medical degree, psychological degree, no master's degree, 0. These mental health professionals can be outspoken and dangerous in their ignorance. The mental health professionals may not fully understand predators and their behavioral patterns, but they're open to learning. Great. So if you encounter a mental health professional, a psychiatrist, psychologist, maybe they don't understand the predators entirely, but they're willing to learn, that's great. We need as many of those as possible, and you may be able to work with that individual. Then there's the psychologist or psychiatrist that totally gets it. They understand through their own experience what a predator is. They understand the personality disorders, either through working with predators or through their clients' experiences, and they have seen it all. More importantly, they felt it. They are also trauma trained. They're trained in trauma, what it looks like, okay? What it sounds like. Category 4 is the kind of mental health professional best for those who are victims of the dark personalities, primarily because the victim does not have to explain and justify the bizarre and extreme nature of the behaviors of these dark personalities. Okay, they're not going to gaslight you. This number 4 category, they're not going to gaslight you. They're not going to be projecting stuff onto you. That's the kind of person you want to work for. Okay, so there's that. And I just want to say, and thank you, subscriber. I won't mention your name. And I don't even remember what the video was. It was recent. It was recent about my posting some of the evidence that was on my property. And you are the first person in the whole history of my YouTube channel that commented that you felt that it was somebody who was still in love with me, and that this was they put me in the program as a revenge. And you know what? That is definitely a possibility. I'm going to tell you why. Because this one guy, when I was 16 years old, always rubbed me the wrong way, gave me a creepy feeling. And then I'm going to say about 8 years ago, he friended me on Facebook because all of my other high school friends, we were having a high school reunion and stuff. We all kind of friended each other, and I attended the high school reunion and stuff. This guy was a couple of years older, but most of the guys that we hung out with were older, a couple of years older. Like they were already, like I was still in high school, and they were already off to college, or the ones that were going to college that were of that mindset were in their first or second year of university, and I was still in high school, even though I graduated almost a year early. So this probably happened to you too. Like when you were growing up, I'm sure you had a bunch of friends that you hung out with. Boys, girls, whatever, different ages, etc. You had one little clique here, one little clique there. You had your best friend, you had your group of best friends, and then maybe everybody hung out together. But then you would separate into little groups because you have one group. They were the what would I call them? They were the druggies. They were the ones that were always high. They were always snorting coke. They were always smoking pot. They were always doing drugs, and half of them are dead. I mean, they ended up dead by the time I was, halfway through university. They just died from jumping out of windows, overdosing, all kinds of stuff. And then you had the groups that were like the really good kids. You knew that they were going to college. They were education minded. And then you had the jocks. And the jocks were all the guys that hung out together. They were not so much interested in the girls, They wanted to play basketball and baseball and stuff like that. And we would just go and watch them play ball and then leave. And then there were the group of that would all get together, and we would go to, they were the partiers. We'd go to concerts and we'd hang out at parties, dances, and how do I phrase this? The what do you call those? Fraternity houses, okay? The fraternities. So, and for all those people that think that I'm a New Jersey girl, I didn't grow up in New Jersey. By the time I left New Jersey, I was 60 years old. Half of my life I lived in New York. I grew up in the Bronx. I lived in New York City. I lived in Queens. So 30 years of my life, I am a New Yorker through and through, and then I moved to New Jersey for another 30 years, and then I'm here in Kentucky. Okay, I'm going to say I'm here longer than I want to be, and I will never consider myself to be a Kentucky girl. Never. Okay? So, yeah, so I just wanted to say I grew up in the Bronx in New York. So I am a native New Yorker. I'm not a New Jersey girl. I guess you could say that I am because I lived there for that long, but I was already an adult, married when I moved to New Jersey. My entire imprinted life is being a New Yorker, okay? So so we all hung out together. And the girls, like myself, we all, well, pretty much, we would date the guys. So you date one of the guys, or when I say date, I'm not saying go out like on a paid for date. Like at 16 years old, most of the guys didn't have enough money to take you on a date, okay? Except there were a couple of guys that actually took me on a date that were 18 years old, and they would pay. You go to a pizza parlor or an ice cream shop or a movie and stuff like that. But this one guy gave me the creeps. And as you probably know, like when you were younger, if you're remotely attracted to somebody, you might want to hang out with them and see what they're like. And then if they turn you off or whatever, you're not going to really see them again. And I was like totally shy. I know it's going to surprise you guys, but I was very, very shy. I was very friendly, but very shy. So I did not have the type of personality that I have now where I will tell anybody anything straight to their face. So I wasn't like that. So if a guy turned me off or whatever, and I didn't want to see them anymore, I generally wouldn't say, I don't want to see you anymore. The way I would do it is I would ignore them, not take their phone calls, and disappear. Okay, so, and then, you'd hope that somebody was intelligent enough to just get it, okay? But this particular guy never got it. He was very creepy. And I would tell my friends that he just rubbed me the wrong way. And as an INFJ personality, I could not always put my feelings into words. I just felt that there was something about this guy. He was so immature. He was beyond like just being goofy. You know how young boys, like 16-year-olds, they're a little goofy, but they're not goofy all the time. Like they're goofy sometimes. This guy was goofy, immature, and not nice almost all the time. I didn't find anything nice about him. I didn't think he was a good person. I mean, he was attractive, girls were attracted to him. He was tall, he was pretty decent looking. So girls would, quote unquote, date him or see him, and then I didn't know anybody that hung out with him for any length of time, females. But anyway, including myself. So I just totally disappeared. And then fortunately, I found out that he was going for some kind of training. I don't know if it was the Army, the Air Force, the Navy. I don't know. It wasn't the Navy. It was either the Air Force or the Army. And then he disappeared. And I was thrilled. I was totally thrilled. I start seeing somebody else and stuff. And then he comes back. And I don't know how long it was. Months, I'm going to say. And he started like harassing me again, like showing up at my house, calling me, ringing my doorbell and stuff. And I would be hiding out in my bedroom and not not answering the door. Yes, me. I'd be hiding out in my bedroom. I'd look out the window. It's like, holy shit, no, I am not answering the door. I don't want to talk to this guy. Bye. No. Yeah, that's the way I handle things back in the day. So this guy, he was always like be angry, always looking at me angrily. It was not normal because girls and boys back then dated each other, they broke up, they would date somebody else. It was no big deal. That's what you did at 16 years old, Nobody, well, at least back then, nobody was getting married. Although a couple of the girls in high school were actually getting pregnant, and I that's another story. But he totally turned me off. He just totally rubbed me the wrong way. And then I find out that he's going back again to wherever he was going, the Army, the Air Force, whatever. Thank God. He was gone. He was gone from the neighborhood and gone. And I moved away. I I guess it was the last year of high school. I think it was the last 6 months of high school. I moved to the other side. Well, not the other side. It was within walking distance, but far enough away to like the other side of the parkway from where I originally lived. So he just couldn't literally show up at my front door as easily. And I started dating somebody else then anyway, who I was in a relationship for 7 years. So, but I find out that this guy, he friended me on Facebook, I'm going to say about 8 years ago. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, we're all like friending each other on Facebook, everybody from high school. Oh, it's fun to reminisce and stuff. And everybody's posting old photos and stuff. And people were actually posting old photos of me and tagging me and whatever. And then suddenly, this guy writes something really nasty about me. And then he unfriends me. Just like that. And I'm thinking, my goodness, like, we're in our 60s at this point, No, maybe it was the late 50s, 60s, and this guy still has issues. So yes, subscriber, it very well could have been that immature little piece of crap named Simon. I'm not going to give you its last name, whatever, but he was in the military. And I just looked up recently his picture on Facebook, and I'm examining him. I'm intuitive, and I'm walking at him. I'm thinking he's the same piece of fuck that he was back then. I looked at his picture, and he's not a nice person. Just totally not a nice person. Has a mean streak, very narcissistic, and always had issues. He had issues when I was 16. He has issues now, and I guess he's married or divorced or whatever and has kids. But I look at his face, and he has the same expression on his face that he did back then. So you may have hit the nail on the head. I don't know for sure, but it's definitely a possibility. And you know why I'm going to say it's a possibility? Because ever since I had that epiphany after your comment and looked him up, and maybe it could be for other reasons too, I have been hit with microwaves so badly the last 2 days. That's why I didn't post a video yesterday. I went to lie down after picking up branches half of the day around the property, and I was so tired. I ended up going to sleep for more than 2 hours. My alarm never even went off. I never even heard my alarm. And then I woke up and my entire body is vibrating. Okay, so maybe you hit the nail on the head. Maybe it's that piece of crap from when I was 16 years old that hasn't gotten over something. I mean, come on, get over it. I mean, we're in our 60s. And plus, he's older than me. So if I'm 66, he's probably 68 now. Get over it. So anyway. What else do I have to tell you guys? I think that's it for now. Please leave a comment down below. So now, given what I just told you, do you think that 18-year-old back in the Bronx may have been revengeful on me? Then he friended me on Facebook, was nasty to me on Facebook. I just ignored him. And then unfriended me? Quite a possibility. Inquiring minds like to know. Leave a comment down below. Hit the thumbs up. It helps to share this video. And I will talk to you guys soon.